talk today is about thinking affirmatively. Thinking affirmatively. And our theme for this month is Living the Science of Mind. And it so happens that the book is also Living the Science of Mind. And ideas about thinking affirmatively comes from three foundational premises. The first is we're surrounded by a creative mind which reacts to our thought. We're surrounded by a creative mind that reacts to our thought. Now, this is also, we might call it today, consciousness. That there is this consciousness that is everywhere present, and everything has a degree of consciousness. And we like to think that human beings have the highest degree of consciousness, but that may not be the case. But Jesus said, to pray believing that we already have what we desire. So we're thinking about what it is we desire like we already have it. How would we feel if we already had it? And those are the feelings, the qualities, you might say, that we were talking about in the meditation, that we're inviting to accept. Now the thing is, the universe is giving all of it to everyone all the time. It's about what can I accept? What am I willing to accept? So the second premise is there's this creative mind. That's the first premise. Second premise is we are thinking and active centers in this mind. So the sum total of our thoughts is either silently attracting good to us or repelling it from us. We're either attracting good or repelling good by the quality, the sum total of the qualities of our thoughts. Now the thing is, what Holmes says in this article, in this book, he says 90% of our thinking is unconscious. They're not conscious thoughts. There's a whole bunch of thoughts that we started picking up in infancy that are in the background running our lives. And we don't even know it. We're not even aware of it. The only way we're aware of it is to see what's showing up. What is showing up in our lives? Because that unconscious stuff is running us. We have these habits, these patterns. So one way to approach that is to say, what would a person have to believe in order for this to show up? And just think about it put it out there. Don't think, what am I thinking? It's like, what would a person have to think in order for that to show up? And just sort of play with that. The third premise of this affirmative thinking is we can change our thoughts. A conscious thought can override the unconscious thought. We can't just pull out the unconscious thought because nature abhors a vacuum. And so it's going to pour right back in the same old thought unless you replace it with something else. So it's about having an affirmative thought to put in there in place of the thought that is destructive or negative or fearful. I mean, we're very good at bringing into our lives that which we fear. That's the lesson of the book of Job. That which I feared most has come upon me. Fear is very powerful. If we think about what we're afraid of, we just keep thinking about that thing that we're afraid of, boom, 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 boom. Guess what? We are calling it in. We're worrying. Worry is negative prayer. It's putting a thought out there with energy. The universe doesn't care. It doesn't know good, bad, nothing. It just says, ooh, this idea with energy. They must want that. Bloop. There you go. There you go. I think I've told you the story about my sister having, her son got leukemia when he was 3. And my sister had been trained as a technical lab specialist, and going through her training, one of the things that she had to observe was people getting spinal taps. And she really didn't like to see, she hated that part. She didn't really like spinal taps at all. She didn't want to see it. And then her 3-year-old son had to get spinal taps. So she had to be there holding his hand and being brave with him while he got that spinal tap. So, we have to really think about what we're afraid of. And is it real? And is there anything that we can do to ameliorate our fear, to release our fear, to become fearless? Now, that doesn't mean let go of all fear. I mean, if the saber-toothed tiger comes at you, please run, or, do something. But, it's about knowing what is really fearful and what isn't, what is being created in our minds only, because our body doesn't know anything about what's going on there, except if we stub our toe or break our leg or something, then it knows. But if we're just thinking, the body accepts whatever the brain is telling it is going on, whether it's scary or pleasurable. We decide. We're creating our world through our thoughts. Ernest Holmes says a way to get ready to affirmatively pray is, he says, I know and understand that there is a power greater than I am. I do realize that I can use it. There is nothing in me that can doubt, deny, or limit this power. My whole being accepts it, both consciously and unconsciously. That's how he gets ready to pray. So he says, we practice believing because thoughts are things. Thoughts are things in this universal energy. And so when we say, I believe, and there is no doubt in me, what we're doing is we're affirming our belief and creating a positive acceptance in the mind at the same time as we're rejecting our doubts by denying them. So both of those things are necessary. We're denying the doubt and accepting the affirmative. So he invites us to daily affirm there is nothing in us that denies good, that every experience we have ever had that denies good is wiped out of mind and memory as a negative force, that we're forgiven our mistakes and encouraged to go on and do better. And encouraged to go on and do better. Now, the wonderful teacher, Louise Hay, who passed away last year, she's widely recognized as the person who brought affirmations into common usage. She wrote a book called You Can Heal Your Life, and in that she tells her own story. Now, she grew up in a childhood that was marked by poverty and abuse. And from that, she concluded that she was worthless and not deserving. Even though she became a very famous model and married a wealthy businessman, she always felt unworthy. She always felt that she did not deserve any good because she was worthless. She found the teachings of the science of mind, and that was the beginning of the shift. She learned that she could change her thinking and her beliefs about herself and attract the good she desired. And then a diagnosis of cancer led her to the deep inner work required to release the lifelong patterns of resentment and blame and begin to truly heal. So you see, she had to release resentment and blame in order to make that shift. We talk about the kingdoms of consciousness, and the first kingdom of consciousness is that victim mentality where we are into resentment and blame. It's all about other people. It's all being done to me. And the next step is we move to the kingdom of control, where we think we have to control everybody and everything because that's how we stay safe and that's how we don't have to be a victim. And that's, everything's done by me. And then, if we keep doing our work, if we're lucky, and sometimes what has to happen is we have to get a disease. We have to have an accident. We have to get a whack on the side of the head, as they say, in order to wake us up to the fact that we're not in control of everybody and everything. We're only in control of what we think about everything that's going on. Stuff is happening. What meaning am I giving it? Because we are the meaning makers. We're the ones who decide whether it's good or it's bad, whether it's positive or negative. We decide. Louise Hay says, "The point of power is always in the present moment. You are never stuck. This is where the changes take place, right here and right now, in our own minds. It doesn't matter how long we've had a negative pattern or an illness or a poor relationship or a lack of finances or self-hatred. We can begin to make a shift today. Remember, you are the only person who thinks in your mind. You are the power and authority in your world. You are the power and authority in your world." You can go on to YouTube, and she has a bunch of affirmations up there. And she has a wonderful explanation of affirmations, and she does like 50 affirmations. You can just sit there listening to affirmation after affirmation after affirmation. She has a very pleasant voice, so it's sort of a fun thing to spend your time at. I spent some time at it, as you can tell. But the thing about this is also that sometimes, it takes a cancer or it takes a disaster of some kind to bring us to the realization of who we are. The thing is, we are divine beings. We've come into this life, and we came in to give a gift. Now, the thing was, we were born into a family, and sometimes that family gave us a lot of beliefs about ourselves that are not true. And they told us we were flawed, and they told us we weren't enough, or blah, 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 blah. They told us things that were not true about ourselves. And we believed them. And because they thought, well, they live on Earth, they must know something about how to live here, so they must be telling me the right stuff. And some of it was the right stuff, and some of it may have been old stuff that they'd been told, and they didn't know any better either. And so we have to realize that we're more than that. We're more than what we thought we were. And sometimes it takes something disastrous to bring our awareness into a new place. So again, I was listening to what? NPR. And I was listening to Fresh Air, and she was interviewing a man by the name of Sam Baker, who is a musician. And in 1986, when he was 31, now he had been a very active guy, hiking, mountain climbing, doing all kinds of physical stuff. And so he just was reveling in his body and reveling in being a young man in the world and having fun. He was having fun. So he went with some friends to Peru. And he was on a train on his way to Machu Picchu when a bomb exploded in the luggage rack over his head on the train. And it was a bomb that was planted by the Shining Path, which was a communist group in Peru that was trying to bring true communism to Peru for the people. And This explosion killed the little boy next to him and his parents. And he suffered a brain injury, severe hearing loss, and required over 15 reconstructive surgeries, including replacing both of his eardrums. But somehow, during his long recovery, songs started coming to him. Now, he had, fooled around with music, but he hadn't really done anything with it. And during this recovery, songs started coming to him. Now, he connected to that spiritual essence because he had a near-death experience in that train car. When that bomb went off, he saw smoke. He said he saw smoke go up, and he knew that it was the spirits of the people who were leaving, the boy and his parents, who had been killed, were the smoke that was going up into the ethers. And he said, I went into whatever the tunnel of light is. I actually went into that, which was interesting. It was really a light of shades of gray. And the light at the end was a tiny light, really not very big. But it was a light that was like a returning, like I was returning and becoming some sort of liquid light. It was more like an ecstatic return, but ecstasy is not the right word. It was like a cellular becoming of something more powerful and beautiful than anything I've ever experienced. It was like a cellular becoming of something more powerful and beautiful than anything I've ever experienced. And he said, I don't think there's a word for it. He said, I grew up going to church every Sunday until I was 17. He said, and it was part of that was a heaven, hell, heaven, hell. He said, but I started thinking about it. It was a non-denominational dying. Now the thing is, he wasn't thinking about getting blown up. This wasn't in his thought patterns. But he might have thought about doing something creative. He might have thought about being something more, or having a gift and giving it. And so this experience opened a door for him to connect with a unique gift that he gives. His music is like storytelling, and much of it sounds like a hymn. It's beautiful and meaningful and truthful and powerful. And one of the lines in his song, one of the songs is, and talking about getting blown up, he said, everyone is at the mercy of another one's dream. Everyone is at the mercy of another one's dream. And so he was at the mercy of the dream of the shining path. Only they took the route of violence. And Holmes says, good always overcomes evil. Martin Luther King Jr. said, good always overcomes evil. But it takes time sometimes. So if we go the violent path, we will come to an end. It will not stand. It may stand for a while, but it will fall. Because it's not the nature of how we are meant to unfold. And of course, everyone who goes through these experiences, one of the things they feel is that oneness, that everything is connected to everything else. And so if we're connected to everyone and everything, we can't blow anybody up. We can't kill anybody to achieve our goals because it's diminishing ourselves. So we take that affirmative power, and it's like that thought is like a seed. We say this frequently. It's like a seed, and we plant it in this universal energy. But it's like the seed that we planted, it has to germinate, and it puts out roots. And then it looks for the light. And somehow, even in the darkness, it finds the light and heads towards it. And then the bloom comes. But it takes time. So we have to be patient with these affirmations that we're making. We have to be patient and practice, practice, practice. You know, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, 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 right? And there's a quote in the Bible. It says, let's see, this is from John. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. We can't just sit around philosophizing. We can't just talk about what this means and how to do it. We have to do it every day. And when we do it every day as part of just who we are, you know, sort of like you get up and you brush your teeth. You say your affirmations. You know, when I first started, I had all these Post-its all over my mirror. So when I got up in the morning, it was like, I am joy. I am whole. I am blah, blah, you know, whatever it was. I had them, you know, to remind me. And so I have my practice every day because it is like Jesus said, you know, before you ask, it shows up. Or I just have a thought, you know, my rose bush, I think, oh, this rose bush is getting all over, you know, it's getting over my driveway. I have to do something about it. And the next day, and someone has come and pruned my rose bush. Now, I've been living there for 3 years. Nobody has pruned it before, but boom, it got pruned. Yay, God. Yay, God. You know, when we practice this stuff, I'm telling you, all these little things show up. And I'm not talking about major things. I'm talking about little teeny miracles every single day. And it's available to all of us. We just have to practice thinking affirmatively every day. Letting go of the fear. And that doesn't mean that fear doesn't come up. It doesn't mean that challenging situations don't come up. It's all about how we react to them and what we make them mean. So we open in acceptance. We let God be God in us. We remember that we're God in drag. So, the thing about it is, when we state our desires, we want the highest good for ourselves and everyone. And we want to do no harm. To do no harm. Okay? We're not going to harm anyone else by having our desires. And what we would want for ourselves, we want for everyone. So, let us say our affirmation together. I accept more good in my life.
I accept more good in my life.
I accept more good in my life. I accept more good in my life. And so it is. All right, and we're going to say our prayer. I know it's a sort of a long one, but we're going to say our prayer for the new minister, because this is another thing we're committing to, is this new minister. And I just realized I don't have a copy of it here, so I'm going to have to read it with you down there. I know. I will come down and read it. Okay. Oh, I got it. Okay. All right. There is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. In knowing that I am one with this life that is God, I therefore know I am one with all of its blessed expressions, which includes the presence of a new minister for my beloved spiritual community. Because I know that the highest purpose of my new minister is to glorify God, I therefore know that my new minister is a revelation of God as unity. I further know that my new minister is the fulfillment of that which has been promised by God, for it is written, "So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth." As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister revealed before me as empowering our thriving spiritual community. I experience my new minister in full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing this truth about myself, for I am inspired to live in unity as an expression of love. I am awakened to the wisdom within. I am embodying the consciousness of wholeness in community and organizational well-being. I am open to mystical teachings that illuminate the science of mind principles. I am supporting my new minister to be a loving and beneficial presence in the greater community in support of social activism. As I now accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know that they will be revealed in a way that will glorify God and serve the highest and greatest good of all who are touched by their presence. I am grateful. God is gracious, and so it is. Amen.